Fly home, don't say anything to your mother and brother. That text came in at 6:47 a.m. while I sat on a sunlit balcony in Hilton Head Island, watching my mother laugh for the first time in 21 years, at something my brother said. An unknown number. No name. 7 words that turned my stomach to ice. 12 hours later, I was standing in the arrivals hall of Hartford Bradley Airport. A man in a gray suit held a sign with my name. Next to him, 2 police officers, and what they showed me in that conference room. I don't remember hitting the floor. I just remember waking up to fluorescent lights and a paramedic asking me to count backward from 10. That was 4 months ago. I still don't sleep through the night. But I need to tell you everything. Because what my family did, and what I did about it, changed who I am forever. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story, and I'd love to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city and your local time in the comments. My name is Willow Farrell. I'm 32 years old, and this is the story of how my own mother and brother tried to destroy me, and how the truth saved my life. Now let me take you back to a rainy November night in Glastonbury, Connecticut. The night I stopped being someone's daughter. I was 11 years old. It was a Tuesday, November 14th. I remember the date because I'd brought home a permission slip for a field trip to the Wadsworth Atheneum, the art museum in Hartford. I needed a parent's signature and $3. That's it. A signature and $3. My mother, Margaret Farrell, was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in. She had the phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was calm, flat, like she was reading a grocery list. "It's done," she said. "She's leaving tonight." I didn't know who she was talking to. I still don't. She hung up and looked at me the way you'd look at a stain on a countertop, something to wipe clean. "Pack your things," she said. I thought she meant for the field trip. I actually smiled. "You're leaving, tonight." My brother Dean stood at the top of the stairs. He was 14. He watched the whole thing. Didn't say a word. Didn't move. Just leaned on the railing like he was watching a show that didn't concern him. My mother opened the front door. Rain was hammering the porch. She handed me a black garbage bag, the kind you use for yard waste, and said 4 words I will hear for the rest of my life. "Go, don't come back." No suitcase, no coat, no explanation, no $3. I walked 3 miles in that rain. My sneakers filled with water by the second block. The garbage bag ripped at the corner of Hebron Avenue, and my library book fell into a puddle. I made it to my grandfather's house on Hubbard Street at 9:20. When he opened the door, he didn't ask what happened. He didn't call Margaret. He just knelt on the wet porch, wrapped his arms around me, and said, "You're home now, little bird." That was the last time anyone in my family held me for 21 years. My grandfather, Walter Ashford, was a retired civil engineer who lived like he'd never earned a dollar past his pension. Small Cape Cod house, vegetable garden out back. A workshop in the garage where he fixed clocks, radios, anything with gears. He wore the same 3 flannel shirts on rotation and drank his coffee black from a mug that said, "World's okayest grandpa." My grandmother Rosemary was the warmth in that house. She taught me how to make pot roast on Sundays. She braided my hair before school. She read to me every night, even when I was 12 and probably too old for it. I never stopped her. For 7 years, that small house on Hubbard Street was the only place I felt real. Margaret never called. Not once. Dean didn't write. No birthday card, no Christmas visit. Nothing. It was as if I'd been erased from their lives with the same ease my mother used to wipe the kitchen counter. My grandfather never forced the subject. But once, when I was 13 and crying in the garage because a girl at school asked why my mom didn't come to the parent conference, he set down his wrench and said something I didn't understand until decades later. "Someday you'll understand why I'm saving the best for you. Not now, but someday." I noticed things. Small things. A man in a gray suit who visited my grandfather every few months. They'd sit in the study with the door closed. I'd hear low voices but never full sentences. When I asked who the man was, Grandpa said, "An old friend helping with paperwork." I didn't push. I was just grateful to have a home. My grandmother Rosemary passed when I was 16. A stroke, quick and merciful. And the house on Hubbard Street got a little quieter, a little colder. But my grandfather kept going, for me, I think. He drove me to campus tours. He proofread my college essays. He kept a locked oak box on the top shelf of his closet that he never opened in front of me. I asked him once what was inside. He smiled and said, "Your future." My grandfather died in his sleep 3 weeks before I started college. I found him on a Saturday morning, still in his flannel, one hand resting on a book about covered bridges. He looked peaceful. He looked done. The funeral was small. 6 neighbors, the pastor from the Methodist church on Main Street, a woman who ran the hardware store where Grandpa bought his nails, and then Margaret walked in. I hadn't seen my mother in 7 years. She wore black from head to toe. A silver cross hung from her neck. She moved through the church like a widow in a movie, touching pews, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, whispering, "Thank you," to strangers who offered condolences. She never looked at me. Not once. But Dean did. He walked right up to where I was sitting in the front pew, leaned down, and said something so quietly that only I could hear it. "Grandpa left everything to Mom. There's nothing for you." Then he smiled. A quick one. The kind that vanishes before anyone else sees it. After the service, a man approached me in the parking lot. Gray suit. I recognized him. The man who used to visit Grandpa's study. "Miss Farrell," he said. "My name is Thomas Mercer. I was your grandfather's attorney for 30 years. He held out a cream-colored envelope, sealed with wax. Old-fashioned, deliberate. "Your grandfather asked me to give you this when the time is right." He paused. "The time isn't now. But keep my card." I took the card. I took the envelope. I put both in my wallet and didn't touch them again. I rode the bus back to my dorm alone that night. No family left, no safety net. 18 years old with a sealed envelope I was too afraid to open, and a business card from a man in a gray suit who said, "The time isn't now." I didn't know that those 2 pieces of paper would save my life 14 years later. I paid for college the way a lot of people do. Scholarships, part-time jobs, and ramen noodles 5 nights a week. I studied computer science at UConn, graduated with honors, and moved to San Francisco with $600 and a carry-on suitcase. I didn't call it ambition back then. I called it not having a choice. By 24, I was working 80-hour weeks at a startup in Soma, writing code for an app I didn't believe in, eating lunch at my desk, and sleeping in a studio apartment the size of a parking space. Nobody in my family knew where I was. Nobody asked. But something was growing. Not resentment. Purpose. I kept thinking about the kids I'd met in college who'd aged out of foster care with nothing. No family. No guidance. No one to call when the landlord raised the rent or the car broke down or the loneliness got so heavy it pressed on their chest like concrete. I knew that feeling. I'd lived it. At 27, I built Hearthline. It was a simple platform. Match kids aging out of the system with volunteer mentors who'd show up. Not charity. Presence. Someone to answer the phone. By 30, a venture fund believed in it enough to invest. The company was valued at $47 million. On paper, I was wealthy. In practice, I was still the girl in sneakers walking 3 miles in the rain. My only real friend was Grace Kimball, a nurse I'd met at the UConn Library freshman year. She was from Brockton, Massachusetts. Direct, stubborn. The kind of person who'd tell you your haircut was terrible before asking how your day went. Grace knew everything about my past, and she had one rule about my family. "If they ever come back," she told me once over Thai food in the Mission, "it's not because they miss you, it's because they need something." I believed her. Mostly. But there's a difference between believing something in your head and believing it in the part of you that still keeps a garbage bag in the back of your closet, just in case. One night, years later, I found a line buried in my UConn financial aid records. Part of my scholarship had been funded by an anonymous educational trust. No name, no trail, just a deposit every semester like clockwork. I couldn't trace it. But I had a feeling I already knew. The call came on a Wednesday, 9:14 p.m. Pacific Time. I was on my couch in San Francisco, half watching a documentary about bridge engineering, a habit I'd inherited from Grandpa, when my phone lit up with a Connecticut area code. I almost didn't answer. I wish I hadn't. "Willow?" The voice was older, shakier, but unmistakable. "It's your mother." Silence. Mine, not hers. I know I don't deserve this call. She told me she'd been diagnosed with early-stage cancer. She said she'd been going to church every week. She said she'd changed. She said the word sorry 4 times in 2 minutes, and each time it sounded more rehearsed than the last. Then she said the thing that cracked me open. I want us to be together. All of us. Before it's too late. A vacation. Hilton Head Island. As a family. She paused. Dean wants to apologize too. I said no. She cried. I hung up and called Grace. Cancer card? Grace said. Classic manipulation. Don't go. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. I stared at the ceiling and argued with myself the way only someone who's been abandoned can argue. Half logic, half that desperate little voice that still whispers, maybe this time will be different. On the 3rd night, I picked up the framed photo on my nightstand. Me and Grandpa, sitting on his porch, the summer I was 15. He was smiling like he knew something I didn't. He'd want me to try. I was sure of it. I called Margaret back. I'll come. 3 days, not 5. I'm booking my own flight and my own room. She agreed to everything instantly. No pushback? No negotiation. That should have been my first warning. 20 minutes later, a text from an unknown number. Be careful. 2 words. No name. I thought it was spam. I deleted it. That was my second warning. And I missed it completely. Hilton Head in late September is the kind of beautiful that feels borrowed, like it can't possibly last. Spanish moss, salt air, sunset light that makes everything look like a painting someone forgot to sign. I flew into Savannah and drove the 45 minutes to the resort, a beachfront property, valet parking, the kind of place that puts orchids in the lobby and charges $12 for orange juice. Dean had booked it. I didn't ask with whose money. Margaret was waiting in the lobby. She looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner. Her hair had gone silver at the temples, and she wore a pale blue cardigan that made her look like a Sunday school teacher. When she saw me, she opened her arms and started crying before I even reached her. You're so beautiful, she said into my shoulder. You look just like your grandmother. Dean stood behind her, taller now, broader, a pressed linen shirt, leather watch, salon-quality smile. He extended his hand like we were meeting at a business conference. Hey sis, long time. He introduced his girlfriend, Amber Jennings. 28. Blonde hair, straight teeth, quick laugh. She shook my hand with both of hers and said, I've heard so much about you. In a voice that sounded like customer service. Dinner that first night was almost normal. Almost. Margaret talked about her church group. Dean talked about his real estate career. Amber laughed at all of Dean's jokes. Nobody mentioned the 21 years, but I noticed things. Dean asked twice what I did for a living. Then he asked if I rented or owned. Then, are you comfortable? Financially, I mean. Families should take care of each other. I gave vague answers, smiled, ate my fish, and when I got back to my room, I checked my phone. A new text from that same unknown number. Did your brother ask about money yet? This time, I didn't delete it. I took a screenshot. The next morning, Margaret suggested family photos on the beach. Something to remember this by, she said. I agreed. What harm could photos do? Plenty, it turns out, when your mother uses them as a stage. She flagged down a resort employee to take the pictures, and while the young woman adjusted the angle, Margaret leaned in and said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. My daughter came back to me after years of running away. She's always been the stubborn one. Running away. As if I'd left by choice. As if I hadn't been pushed out a door at 11 with a trash bag in the rain. I didn't correct her. I stood there in the sand with my arm around a woman who'd rewritten my childhood for an audience of strangers, and I smiled for the camera. Dropped half an octave. Look, I'll be dropped half an octave. Look, I'll be honest. I've hit some rough patches, a few debts, nothing major. He shrugged like a man describing a parking ticket. Have you ever thought about investing together, as siblings? I'm not in a position to invest, I said. He pivoted fast. You know Grandpa left everything to Mom, right? His house, his savings? Not a lot, honestly. He was watching my face, testing. I didn't know the details, I said. Which was true. That night, I was brushing my teeth when I heard voices in the hallway outside my door. Margaret and Dean. Low, tense. She doesn't know, Margaret said. Keep going. She's suspicious, Dean replied. Then be better at it. I pressed my back against the bathroom wall. My toothbrush was still in my mouth. My hands were shaking. I waited until the hallway went quiet. Then I picked up my phone and texted the unknown number. Who are you? 3 minutes passed. Then, Someone your grandfather trusted. Morning. Day 3. The last day I'd agreed to stay. Dean came to breakfast carrying a manila folder. He set it on the table between the salt shaker and the butter dish, casual as a newspaper. So, I've been looking into Grandpa's estate, he said. Turns out there's property and accounts that were never properly distributed. He opened the folder and slid a stapled document toward me. Mom and I think it's fair if we all sign this, just to consolidate things under one family trust. I picked it up. The header read, Family Trust Agreement, Ashford/Farrell Estate. I'm not a lawyer, but I've spent 5 years reviewing contracts for my company. I know what a power of attorney clause looks like when it's dressed up in family language. And this document was handing Dean full control over every asset tied to the Ashford name. I need time to read this properly, I said. It's just a formality. Dean leaned back. Mom already signed. Margaret pulled my hand back. I said I need time. Pulled my hand back. I said I need time. Dean's jaw tightened. Amber glanced at him, then looked down at her phone. Back in my room, I photographed every page and sent the images to my attorney in San Francisco. 2 hours later, he called. Don't sign anything, he said. This document would give your brother control over assets you might not even know you have. I sat on the edge of the bed. My phone buzzed. The unknown number. Longer this time. Fly home. Don't say anything to your mother and brother. There's a flight at 6 a.m. from Savannah. Take it. A car will be waiting at Hartford. Don't be afraid. I sat on that bed for an hour staring at the message. My hands were shaking. I kept thinking, what if this is a scam? What if someone is trying to separate me from my family again? But then I thought, what family? The one that kicked me out at 11? The one that just slid a trap across the breakfast table and called it legacy? I had to choose. And I chose to trust a stranger over my own blood. Would you have done the same? I still don't know if it was courage or just survival instinct. Let me know in the comments. Because even now, 4 months later, I go back and forth. I set my alarm for 4:30 a.m. and didn't sleep at all. 4:30 a.m. Still dark. The resort hallway smelled like chlorine and hibiscus. I grabbed my carry-on. I never unpack fully in places I might need to leave, and took the service stairs to the ground floor. No checkout. No note. I ordered an Uber from the parking lot and watched the resort shrink in the rearview mirror as we pulled onto Highway 278. The driver was a retired schoolteacher named Donna. She asked if I was heading home. I said yes. That was the truest thing I'd said in 3 days. At Savannah Hilton Head International, I checked in for the 6 a.m. flight to Hartford. The gate was half empty. A businessman, a mother with a sleeping toddler. Me, sitting in a plastic chair with a coffee I couldn't drink, rehearsing goodbye speeches I'd never give. I texted Grace from the boarding line. Something is very wrong. I'm leaving. I'll call you when I land. Grace, bless her. Thank God. The plane lifted off at 6:05. I watched the coastline tilt and fall away. The island, the resort, the family I'd let myself believe in for 72 stupid, hopeful hours. My phone buzzed at 7:30. Dean. Where are you? Mom is worried sick. Then Margaret. Willow, please don't do this to me again. Then Dean, 1 minute later. We need to talk about the trust. It's important. 3 messages in 10 minutes. Concern, guilt, then pressure. A perfect escalation. I'd watched Margaret do this my whole childhood. The soft open, the wounded middle, the sharp close. Dean had learned well. I turned off my phone and leaned my forehead against the window. And that's when I felt it in my jacket pocket. A business card, soft with age, its edges worn to felt. Thomas Mercer, attorney at law. I'd carried it in my wallet for 14 years, transferred it to jacket after jacket, never knowing why I couldn't throw it away. Now I knew. Hartford Bradley Airport, Gate B4. I walked through the jetway with my carry-on over one shoulder and the feeling that I was about to step into someone else's story. I was right. A man stood in the arrivals area holding a small sign, W. Farrell. Gray suit. Silver hair. 70-ish. Beside him, 2 Connecticut State Police officers in pressed uniforms, hands at their sides. Not aggressive, but present. The man lowered the sign when he saw me. Miss Farrell, my name is Thomas Mercer. I was your grandfather Walter Ashford's attorney for 30 years. He offered his hand. Steady grip, kind eyes. We need to talk, privately. They led me to a small conference room near the airline offices. Beige walls, a round table, 4 chairs. Thomas sat across from me and placed 3 items on the table with the precision of a man who'd rehearsed this moment. A bound document, a sealed envelope, cream-colored, wax seal, handwriting I recognized as my grandmother Rosemary's, and a thick folder, tabbed and labeled. Your grandfather drafted this will in 2012, Thomas said. It names you, Willow Farrell, as the sole beneficiary of his entire estate. I stared at him. That includes the house on Hubbard Street, savings accounts, investment holdings accumulated over 40 years. He paused. The estimated value is $2.8 million. The room tilted. I gripped the table. He instructed me to execute the will when 2 conditions were met. First, you turned 32. Second, your family made contact with you. Why those conditions? Because he knew they'd only come back if they found out about the money. Thomas opened the thick folder. But that's not why the police are here. He spread a series of printed screenshots across the table, text messages, between Dean and a contact saved as V. The first one read, "She's here. Room 412. If she doesn't sign by Thursday, go to Plan B." The reply, "Plan B costs double." Dean's response, "Whatever it takes." Thomas introduced the woman sitting quietly at the end of the table. I hadn't noticed her when I walked in, which I'd later learn was the whole point. "This is Rachel Dunn," Thomas said. "Private investigator. I hired her 6 weeks ago, the day your mother called you." Rachel was compact, 40s, short brown hair, no jewelry, a face that gave nothing away. She opened a laptop and turned it toward me. "Your brother owes $340,000, she said. "Mostly online gambling. His creditors are not patient people." She clicked through a timeline. Dean had discovered the will 6 months earlier by breaking into the vacant house on Hubbard Street and finding a draft copy in Grandpa's desk. He told your mother. Together, they devised the vacation plan. Rachel's voice was clinical, precise. Step 1. Reconnect. Step 2. Get you to sign the family trust document, transferring control to Dean. Step 3. She pulled up a new set of messages. Dean to V, a man named Victor, with a criminal record for aggravated assault and extortion. If she doesn't sign, we go to Plan B. What's Plan B? Make it look like an accident. She doesn't know anyone here. Balcony. Pool. Whatever's clean. I read it 3 times. The words didn't change. Your brother was arranging your murder, Rachel said. Then she showed me the message I couldn't look away from. Dean to Margaret. Time-stamped 2 days before the trip. She's not signing. We may need the backup plan. Margaret's reply. Do what you have to do. Just keep me out of it. My own mother. 8 words. No hesitation. I stood up. I said, "Excuse me." I walked to the restroom at the end of the hall. I locked the door. And I cried in a way I hadn't cried since I was 11, standing in the rain with a garbage bag. My whole body convulsed. The fluorescent light buzzed above me like a hive. When I came back to the table, my eyes were swollen and my voice was raw, but I was done falling apart. "What do we do now?" I said. Thomas began explaining the next steps: legal filings, coordination with law enforcement, protective measures. He was halfway through a sentence about a restraining order when the room narrowed to a pinpoint and the floor rushed up to meet me. I woke on my back. A paramedic was kneeling beside me, pressing 2 fingers to my wrist. "You're okay," he said. "Your blood pressure dropped. Can you count backward from 10? I counted. I stared at the ceiling tiles. I thought about Grandpa opening the door in the rain, kneeling on the wet porch, not asking questions. He knew this would happen. Maybe not the details. Not Victor, not the balcony, not the pool. But he knew the shape of it. He knew what Margaret and Dean were capable of, and he spent his last years building a wall between them and me. Thomas sat in the chair beside me, patient as a clock. He handed me a paper cup of water. "Take your time," he said. "But don't take too long. Your brother doesn't know you've left yet." I sat up, drank the water, steadied my voice. "I don't want revenge," I said. "I want the truth on the table. All of it." Thomas nodded like he'd been waiting for exactly those words. Then he reached into his briefcase and set down the sealed envelope. Cream-colored, wax seal, my grandmother's handwriting. The same one he'd given me at Grandpa's funeral 14 years ago. "You never opened it," he said. I hadn't. I'd carried it across 6 apartments, 4 cities, and 1 entire career. It had traveled in jacket pockets and shoeboxes and the bottom of filing cabinets. I'd touched it 100 times and never broken the seal. "Open it when you're ready," Thomas said. "Your grandmother Rosemary wrote it the week before she passed." I slipped the envelope into my bag. Not yet, but soon. First, I had a brother to stop. Thomas arranged a room at a hotel in Hartford. Quiet, clean, away from anything with the name Farrell attached to it. Grace flew in from Boston that same night. She walked through the door, dropped her bag, and wrapped her arms around me without a word. Then she said what Grace always says. I told you not to go." "I know." I leaned into her shoulder. "But if I didn't go, they would have found me eventually." She didn't argue. She knew I was right. While Grace ordered room service, I couldn't eat. The machinery of consequences was grinding forward 2 states away. Connecticut State Police had coordinated with law enforcement in South Carolina. The plan was clean. Arrest Victor first at Hilton Head, then take Dean the following morning back in Glastonbury. I sat on the hotel bed while Grace dozed in the armchair. Midnight. The city hummed outside the window. I pulled the envelope from my bag. The wax cracked like a whisper. Inside, 1 sheet of stationery, pale yellow, and a photograph. Rosemary's handwriting was careful, deliberate, the kind of penmanship they taught in schools that don't exist anymore. "My dearest Willow, if you're reading this, it means your grandfather is gone and I'm gone, and someone is trying to take what's yours. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but I want you to know, you were never the problem. Your mother was broken long before you were born, and she broke you instead of fixing herself. You deserve the world, little